This video, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to show you every single wave I caught in a single session. Normally, I pick and choose the waves I put in an edit, but I wanted to show you what one of my full sessions looks like. This one was incredibly fun. The waves kept getting better and better, and it was just one of those days that I walked away feeling like I progressed quite a bit. Before we get into analyzing the session, I want to show you some footage of me yapping in front of the camera right before I paddled out. I get deep into the weeds with some longboarding aspects. I'm going to try to dress it up with some B-roll to explain what I'm talking about better, but try and closely follow along because it relates so well to what actually happens during the session. Oh, this is just one of those days that is going to be fun. Small waves, a couple of friends coming, and it's looking good. All right, so it's been a while since I have focused on cross-stepping. Been doing a lot of turning, and through the board setup video I did, all the turning videos I did, I have noticed that still on lefts, my arm shoots up and it's getting annoying. So, oh my gosh, is that a good right? Woo! Oh, the pipe is looking good. All right, let's see what happens to this wave. Oh, it's a good right, it's a good right, it's a good right. I kind of wanted lefts. All right, let's go to another spot. So just to clarify kind of what's been going on with my surfing, rights, cross-stepping is not too big of a deal. My issue with rights is I typically bottom turn way too fast. The board gets traveling up the wave too fast. Pretty easy fix. The lefts, on the other hand, are a bit more of a problem because when I take a left, almost every single time, one of my hands goes shooting up, and I believe it's, let me see. Well, I can't think right now. I'll put a B-roll clip in which hand is the one that shoots up. So a couple things are happening with that. Number one, my first step is typically too much on the rail. I need to work on overstepping my first step. And by overstep, I mean overcompensate. So if I'm constantly putting my foot here, I'm gonna aim here instead in hopes that it goes here. So that's something that I have not done too much thinking about. So that could actually help a little bit. So overstepping that first step, but also kind of overstepping the second step. Because if I step the first time, typically my first step on the left will be a little more towards the rail than it should be, and then my next step will be in the center line. So that means my second step is not in line with the first. If it was in line, it would be on the rail like the first step was. So considering my first step is a little rail heavy typically, and now granted, that depends on the waves. Sometimes you need that first step to be on the rail, but if I get that first step correct and then overstep the second step, so I'm basically overstepping both steps. So kind of an easy thing to think about, but thinking about two things at once is tough. The second thing I'm gonna try to work on today is keeping control of my arms. So I have to keep my arms at my side. If I keep them at the side and force them to not shoot up, I force the rest of my body to do the work. Instead of my arms trying to keep my balance, I force the steps to keep my balance and my lower body as it should be. You look at videos of Joel Tudor, his arms are so silent the whole time. Now, this is not to say you can't use your arms for balance. Of course you can, but I'm specifically trying to work out my cross-stepping to be more stable. So because I'm doing that drill, I want my arms to be silent. I don't know if that's the type of surfer I will be. I might be more of like a Jevson Silva type surfer who has crazy arms, and he's amazing. So, it's kind of a personal preference thing, the arms. Some people don't care at all about them. I care a little bit. I want to be smooth. Now, we did make a bet before we paddled out that the last person to catch their first wave buys coffee. So, of course, I turned around immediately and caught this wave. Now just bear with these first few waves. In the beginning of most sessions, I'm just trying to figure out where the waves are and exactly how to ride them, so the first waves typically stink. Just stay patient, it gets better pretty quick. Now make a note of how much the board bobbles in this faded takeoff. I've been trying to smooth them out lately, and I think in this session I may have found the solution. And before you start accusing us of stealing each other's waves, just remember that in our group, every wave is a party wave. It's more fun that way. Now now's about the time that I realize the bigger waves are the way to go. I normally hate sitting outside for bigger waves, and I just catch a million small ones, but today the sets just kept rolling in, and it wasn't that long of a wait. This ended up being a really fun right. I kept it in control pretty well, couldn't really finish the wave, and then finally a beautiful left came through. Yes, 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 yes. That is exactly what I came here to do. Alright, the wave wasn't that great, but I kept my arms very quiet. My first step was great. My second step was actually large enough. Normally, that second step for me is very small, which makes my last two steps hard. But in this case, the last two steps were cake because of that second step. Yes! And after feeling like $1,000,000, the next wave sends me straight back to reality. At this point, my frontside waves are looking better than my backside waves, which is not usual. Another faded takeoff that is not smooth. It's a little bit better, but still not quite there. And here is the faded takeoff I am quite happy with. All I did was try one of those longboard takeoffs where as you pop up, you leave your back foot where it is, way back on the board, and you just slide your front foot up. The fact that your back foot is so far back, it smooths out the whole fade. Who knew? And to top it off, the first two cross steps were also smooth. This overstepping is helping quite a bit. You can find waves like this that, even though this looks like a closeout, it ends up rebuilding and you can still have fun with it, especially on a longboard. Until the spring liberates me from my winter hell. I've got candles and candy, I can be your
creep into your prison cell. Hey baby, can you tell I'm not a criminal? Your choice is seminal. I want you to stay true.
I watch the end of this wave as it starts to fizzle out. I specifically take an extra large step with my right foot, because when waves start to get weak is a perfect time to practice some weird things you're trying to practice.
Where you would like to go. I've got cigarettes and brandy, which could come in handy.
Now check this out. When I come up out of the water after this wipeout, you'll see my hands are in the air above my head. And that's because I suspected my surfboard was flying through the air and I was trying to protect myself. It's typically good practice whenever you're coming out of the water. Just protect your head a little bit, because you never know what your board is doing above you.
Just find your way and try to stay.
Speaking of surfboards flying through the air, later in this video, one flies through the air again, but in a good way. Compared to some of my earlier waves, the cross-stepping on this one was a little rougher, but it was also a steeper, more critical section, so all in all, I'm pretty happy I didn't panic and just rush.
Oh, I know what will others say. Just find your way and try to stay.
This is what the takeoff looks like when you're more concerned with the high five than actually riding the wave. This old school parallel stance is actually quite fun. I highly recommend it. I used to think it was kind of stupid looking, but it's really fun to do. This is when the waves really started to get good, and I wish I knew why. I have a decent idea of what makes good waves based on the swell direction, swell size, wind, tide, things of that nature, but sometimes you'll have two of the exact same forecasts and there'll be two completely different waves. When I mentioned earlier that any issues I have cross-stepping on backside waves is a fairly easy fix, well, here's a great example of that. I have a tendency to whip my bottom turns pretty fast on rights. Part of that is because New Jersey has very fast and steep waves, and it is required sometimes, but with waves like this, you just got to do a nice slow bottom turn, get the board traveling up slowly, make sure each cross-step is in control, and you are solid. I somehow have to transfer this into a fast bottom turn, but that's going to take some experience. Coming up with this wave is a pretty late takeoff. Look how angled my board is. I had someone ask in the comments recently how to not nosedive on late takeoffs, and here is the answer. I'm also working on a very highly edited video that will cover this a bit. This was also my first time finishing a wave like this, where you whip the board and fling it through the air. You often see a lot of longboarders do this. I always wondered why, and as usual, it's because it's very fun. I know this was a very long video, but I have my reasons for that. Number one, I wanted you to see the good and the bad, but I also wanted myself to be able to see that and use this video as a judge a year from now. I was fairly happy with how I surfed, so a year from now, this video is a good example of how I surfed the year before. What I was working on today helped me out so much. I hope it can help you out, but if you don't know the techniques that I showed in this video, then it's not going to help you. So make sure you check this one out next, and the two videos combined should really smooth out your cross-stepping. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.